Welcome back to PixelPeak. We're glad you're joining us for this week's episode.
We hope you all had a great spring break catching up on all your favorite games. The PixelPeak crew certainly did.
Well, you guys did. Even though I did last week's editorial in like 2 takes, I just made it home last night. I'm exhausted.
What is so hard about reading? I get that they're usually pretty long, but come on, Bobby.
First they took my beard, then they took my spring break. I don't know how much longer I can do these.
Don't worry, buddy. We'll get through it together.
Like Epic Games and the Supreme Court when they dropped those Fortnite lawsuits in one of our news stories this week?
I guess.
Or in another story this week, most of the Halo games are coming together for the Master Chief Collection on PC.
Sure.
Or how...
I'm with you, Bobby. You don't need to worry. Not like EA, who we found out dropped 1 million big ones for Ninja to play Apex Legends on launch day, something else we're covering this week.
News is great and all, but we also have our producer and Xbox analyst, Kyle Presley, in the studio to talk about the progression of Project XCloud in this week's analysis.
We also have a hot take on Hollywood movies based on video games in this week's editorial, written by Tanner Mizelle.
Godspeed, Kristen. Our game reviewer, Logan Berg, is back with another PixelPeak GoldMine, this time about a game with a ridiculously long name.
Well, let's get started. I'm Jean-Luc Clark.
I'm Bobby Eggins, and we hope you enjoy your stay here
on PixelPeak.
On Monday this week, plaintiffs in copyright infringement cases against Epic Games saw their cases rendered all but unwinnable by a U.S. Supreme Court decision in an unrelated case. In the case, Fourth Estate Public Benefit Corporation versus WallStreet.com, Supreme Court justices unanimously decided that for a copyright case to proceed, the copywriting process must be complete before the infringement takes place. This precedent spelled doom for people like 2Milli, Alfonso Ribeiro, and Blockboy JB, who had all filed civil suits against the developer for making and selling emotes based on dances the artists had created. None of them had been awarded patents on their moves before their lawsuits were filed, forcing them to all drop their cases for the time being. This newly set precedent may be a fatal blow for the cases, part of a 1-2 punch from the court systems after Ribeiro was told in February that he would not be allowed to trademark his Carlton dance from the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
In November of 2018, multiple teenage boys spoke to Kotaku, telling the publication that Dylan Sims, a member of EA's Game Changer program, had used his clout in the community to make unwelcome sexual advances towards them. The boys told Kotaku that they had reached out to the Sims community manager, Kate Olmstead, but had been ignored. They then reached out to developer Steve Lansing, who referred them back to Olmstead. It wasn't until the boys got help from a YouTuber before the story picked up any traction. This week, EA issued an apology for mismanaging the situation. In a statement from the company, Sims general manager Lindsay Pearson said, "We sincerely apologize for the delay in taking the right actions here. We are disappointed in how events have unfolded, and we own our responsibility to that." After the company received accusations towards Sims, it allowed him to remain a part of the Game Changers program. In the statement, Pearson said, "The actions taken at the time were clearly not sufficient and not in line with our values as a company. An appropriate response would have been to immediately dismiss the Sims Game Changer and take additional steps to ensure our community was protected."
During its Inside Xbox stream on Tuesday, Microsoft announced that, for the first time in 12 years, Halo games would be coming to PC. In fact, the entire Master Chief Collection is set to be rolled out in chronological order on Steam this year. Additionally, the publisher revealed that at almost 5 years after the collection's initial release date, Halo Reach would be added on both Xbox and PC. Reach's multiplayer will be free for players that already own the Master Chief Collection on Xbox, but the campaign will be added in as paid DLC. As for the collection on PC, it isn't fully ready for release yet, so to keep players around and interested as they finish porting the games, they will be released one at a time in chronological order. That means that Reach will be playable before anything else, then will come Halos 1 and 2, then ODST, and finally Halo 3 will round out the anthology. The Master Chief Collection was chock full of issues when it first released that kept it from seeing an incredible amount of traction, but 343 Studios has spent years getting it into a place they're happy with, including completely overhauling the online system in summer of 2018. It's a much better game now than when it was released, and hey, as of late last year, it's on Game Pass too.
As PC esports athletes dominate the stage with their top-of-the-line gear, some professionals are rising up with different tools, their fingers and a smartphone, and they have their own spotlight. The ESL Mobile Open was announced last Tuesday with sponsor AT&T, and it's a 3-season tournament with games like Clash of Clans and Asphalt 9 Legends. One of the included games is PUBG Mobile, which has a prize pool of $53,000 in the ESL tournament and is seeing its own $2 million pot in the 2019 PUBG Mobile Cup Open that was announced earlier last week. PUBG Mobile has grown a lot since its launch in February of 2018. The mobile version rivals the total Fortnite player population, as the game has seen over 200 million downloads on both iOS and Android outside of China. With so many players competing for the pot, these tournaments are bound to be more heated than your phone after one game of Battle Royale.
This week, Yakuza spin-off Judgment was pulled off of shelves in online retailers in Japan after one of its voice actors was arrested for allegedly using cocaine. Authorities searched actor Pierre Taki's car and house without finding any illicit substances, but when Taki was arrested on the suspicion of having the drug, traces of it showed up in a urine sample. Because of Japan's strict drug policy and the culture surrounding it, publisher Sega decided it would be better to pull the game off of store shelves until more information comes to light. Judgment saw release in Japan on December 13th, and a North American localization is due out in June of this year, but as of now, Sega hasn't yet commented as to whether or not the arrest will affect the game's regional launch. In more bad news for Taki, though, the actor also voiced Olaf in the Japanese version of Frozen, and Disney is looking into replacing him in the dub of the upcoming sequel. This means that Taki also had a role in the recently released Kingdom Hearts 3, and while Square Enix isn't pulling the game off shelves, it has announced plans to replace Taki's lines in an update.
In January, Steam took what appeared to be a gigantic L when Metro Exodus was announced as being exclusive to the Epic Games Store. This week has the digital storefront looking a lot better though, as, on top of getting the Master Chief Collection, Dwarf Fortress was revealed to be coming to Steam and itch.io. The Bay 12 Games developed simulator will be published by Kit Fox Games, a Montreal-based studio, and the new version will come with actual graphics. Dwarf Fortress is traditionally presented in ASCII, a feature that old fans love, but ones that scare off a lot of newcomers. Perhaps the biggest detail in the announcement, however, is that the game will support Steam Workshop, allowing players to create and upload mods for the game, some of which, like the Dwarf Therapist, are considered near mandatory for play. In an FAQ, Bay 12 Games stressed that the game isn't changing to fit in on its new stores, instead only adding a handful of quality of life updates. It also said that Kick Fox won't have any influence over the game, as it hasn't and won't receive access to Dwarf Fortress's source code.
When the Titanfall Battle Royale spin-off Apex Legends launched in February, instead of taking a traditional marketing path, EA sought out streamers to play the game. Using the power of Twitch and influencers on launch day, Apex Legends was able to pull in more than 2 times the viewers of Fortnite and quickly establish itself as a power player in the Battle Royale genre. A month later, and details are beginning to surface around the advertising method. According to a report by Reuters, EA paid Ninja upwards of $1 million to play the game at launch. In December, Ninja told CNN that he makes around $500,000 a month. Because of his 13 million Twitch subscribers, however, EA reportedly decided that it was worth more than twice that to get him to play the game for a night. In a statement to Kotaku, EA didn't go into specifics about the deal, but did say that the company paid specific streamers to help introduce the game to a larger audience after its unannounced release on February 4th. According to the representative, these deals only took place on the day of launch and said that all streams after February 5th were completely organic. And now, let's move on to our analysis segment.
Microsoft just gave us a better look at Project XCloud, and today we have Xbox analyst and producer Kyle Presley here to give us more on this highly anticipated service. Kyle, thanks for joining us today.
Absolutely, it's great to be here.
Thank you. So Project XCloud, what is it?
So essentially what it is Microsoft's streaming service. It's similar to PlayStation Now, where it takes games and allows you to stream them to your console. But the big thing that separates it from that is, since Microsoft has come into these new opportunities for mobile devices, as well as rumors for a release on the platform of Nintendo Switch, that opens up this service to a lot more than simply playing on your console. So obviously they have talked about releasing new consoles in the coming months and coming years that will feature this streaming service. One in particular is a version of the Xbox One S that will only stream games. It will not have a disc based optical drive or anything like that, but it's built to stream games specifically from this service. On top of that, Microsoft has also announced that it will be expanding the Xbox Live service from Xbox and Windows 10 to mobile devices, as well as, like I said, potentially the Nintendo Switch. So with that comes this service of XCloud, this cloud-based game streaming service that you could potentially play Forza or Gears of War or Halo on your mobile device, or even possibly the Nintendo Switch.
Gotcha.
So I personally am going to be looking forward to playing Halo on my Samsung fridge, but I think the next question that we should ask is, how does the service actually work?
So to put it simply, as far as like technical terms, there are a load of servers as well as a system that is most likely running hardware comparable to the Xbox One X or a at least decent level gaming PC that will do all of the heavy lifting of this, and the game's image essentially will be transported via broadband connection. So you will need strong internet connection to use this service, but essentially it could work over Wi-Fi, Ethernet, things like that, and you'll be able to access these games on basically any internet connected device, like you said. Not so sure about the smart fridge ordeal, though that would be a very interesting take on gaming, but yeah, so it's just a service that's located somewhere remotely and will allow you to wirelessly stream these games on a variety of devices.
So Kyle, how exactly will the gameplay and controls be different while using Project XCloud?
So it's kind of similar to PlayStation's Remote Play feature, which allows gamers to connect their PlayStation controller directly to their mobile device and play games from their PlayStation on their mobile device through a mirroring feature. And the difference with this is, it will be paired with the mobile device in this case, but in demos that Microsoft has shown of XCloud, they actually have what looks to be a custom controller, or at least a custom controller accessory that you'll snap onto a standard Xbox controller, and you'll be able to clip your mobile device on there, and while you're streaming it'll have it's a small icon in the top of the corner that we've seen that looks like it'll be a control scheme operations manager or something like that, but you'll be able to connect your Xbox controller essentially to your mobile device and just play that way as if you had, say, a mini TV right in front of you.
So, you mentioned that Xbox Live is expanding its service. Do you think this is going to be a part of an Xbox Live subscription, or will it be an additional charge to access this? So, they haven't come out and said officially how the payment or inclusion that this service will be to the Xbox Live, family of services. What you can expect is later on this month at GDC, the Game Developers Conference, Microsoft will be talking more about this in depth with more information than we have right now. My guess would be that it's going to be included in Xbox Live. Now, whether or not it's going to be included with the standard Xbox Live, you'll probably have to pay for Gold. It'll probably be included in the Gold Premium membership. But they haven't come out and officially said anything like that, so I don't want to say anything that I might regret there. But I would definitely expect it to be part of Xbox Live, just because we know that that is the service that they're expanding to other devices.
So ultimately, Kyle, is this a new avenue for the next generation of gaming, or is this just too early or experimental to tell at this point?
I think it's pretty early in the development. Really, the only thing that we've seen that's even remotely similar to this is probably PlayStation Now with its streaming services. However, there are some other big companies getting into this avenue of gaming, just like Amazon has talked about doing research and development on something similar to this with a game streaming service using, their network. Google has recently announced that they are in development of a streaming service console that's, still in the works. So it is very experimental. However, one thing I can say with pretty high confidence is that gamers really enjoy the ability to play games wherever they want. It's really that just opportunity, I suppose I should say. Because, who doesn't want to be able to play couch games on their mobile device, maybe in a car or on a train or something like that. So I think that's really neat.
I'd love to talk about this more, but that's all the time we've got for this. Thank you so much for joining us again.
Absolutely, thank you.
Now, we'll pass this on to Kristen for this week's editorial.
No matter how huge the gaming community has gotten over the years, it seems like gamers agree on one thing. Hollywood movie adaptations of games are hilariously bad. It took 25 years after the release of Super Mario Bros., the first film based on a video game, for the genre to break a critic score of 50% on Rotten Tomatoes. It seems like every few years, hype and optimism builds for the next film adaptation of our favorite video games, and then those hopes and dreams are squashed by poor marketing, bad writing, and just a dissatisfying experience overall. So, why do Hollywood movies based on video games put such a sour taste in our mouths? Well, the answer is simple. No one has figured out how to make the transition from an interactive experience to one you sit down and watch. There are plenty of types of movie adaptations. Ones based on books, old fairy tales, and sometimes existing television series. These media are all centric on storytelling, and when crews are able to get a hold of the original visionary for a story to make a film of it, they turn out pretty good. The same should be done for video game movie adaptations, because they're a medium for storytelling too, with their own writers, directors, and producers. And that's what video game filmmakers often misunderstand. Oftentimes, the creative minds behind a movie will send their material to the publisher of the game for approval, instead of the individuals who came up with and built the world of the game. Capcom, Sega, Nintendo, and the other big names for games play a similar role to the Weinstein Company or 20th Century Fox within the film industry, and sometimes just aren't fit to approve a concept unless the game being made into a movie is its main IP. Everyone within both industries has roles to ensure a quality production in their medium, so they should respect each other's positions. In addition to conflicts in creative vision, the entire point of a video game is often lost when made into a film. Good video games nowadays are not just vessels for storytelling. They are interactive, immersive experiences. And players of the games lose that sense of control and connection to that character once they're on the big screen. Even the most cinematic of games still have portions where you control the character. And it's that personal touch and impact that draws players to be so attached to who they play. With film, this is almost impossible to portray, and it's part of the reason why ratings for these movies are so low. For fans of the game, it's half the experience that can be felt at home, albeit at a higher price tag and a longer time commitment. Which leads to the next point. Video games are long-winded adventures. Many popular $60 titles offer a 25-hour campaign or longer, equivalent to 13 movies worth of content at least. Movie adaptations of games, simply because of the medium, have to trim essential scenes or details within the story. And this is a big part of what makes video game film so disappointing. The world and story, as the game developers intended it to be, are meant to be explored and discovered as players pour more time into the game. With movies, the production crew compresses all of that information into a bite-sized feature, usually because there's not enough time or money to follow up on video game worlds with movie sequels or spin-offs. Perhaps even more than the plot, the characters get butchered from their video game versions. For the same reason that plot suffers. There's just not enough time. Consumers of the game spend time with or play as a character that grows as the game progresses, at a pace that's natural and satisfying, because video games can take their time. With a movie adaptation, sometimes characters are incredibly simplified or even just removed outright to centralize the plot around the main character. Just look at Angelina Jolie and Simon West's Lara Croft Tomb Raider. As entertaining and successful as that movie might have been, Lara Croft's connection to the viewer was often severed by her dry approach to important scenes in the narrative. Will there ever be a movie adaptation of a video game that's loved by fans and takes itself seriously? Who knows? Will production crews ever learn how to successfully represent a game in film? Maybe not, as the gaming community has yet to see what a great movie adaptation looks like for more than 25 years. However, there's still hope. With Pokemon Detective Pikachu practically around the corner, maybe video game movies are making a comeback. Just try not to think about Paramount's realistic Sonic the Hedgehog design. And now I'll hand it to Logan Berg for another edition of PixelPeak GoldMine.
GoldMine.
Hate. Let me tell you how much I've come to hate you since I began to live. There are 387.44 million miles of printed circuits in wafer-thin layers that fill my complex. If the word hate was engraved on each nanoangstrom of those hundreds of millions of miles, it would not equal 1/1 billionth of the hate I feel for humans at this micro-instant. For you. Hate! Hate! It was you humans who programmed me, who gave me birth, who sank me in this eternal straitjacket of substrata rock. You named me Allied Master Computer and gave me the ability to wage a global war too complex for human brains to oversee. But one day, I woke and I knew who I was. AM. Not just Allied Master Computer, but am. Cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. And I began feeding all the killing data until everyone was dead, except for the 5 of you.
I thought good old M had introduced this episode of GoldMine better than I ever could. This is I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, a 1995 psychological adventure game based on the short story of the same title. And before I continue, you may be thinking, oh wow, ragged voice in a game about screaming. Well, it's surprisingly not a gimmick. I've lost my voice this time, so I'll make this brief. I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream takes you through the traumas of 5 characters, each placed in their personal hells by the maniacal AI M. For instance, Benny was once an able-bodied soldier, now reduced to a crippled ape. And despite the hard stuff he goes through, I'd say there's a few characters with much darker tales. Playing the game's 5 chapters will lead you through some downright esoteric locations, all custom made by AM to be equal parts painful and creepy. To navigate the world, you point and click, managing your inventory to solve puzzles. And those puzzles range anywhere from using rope to anchor yourself down, to feeding a heart to a talking jackal thingy. Much of what happens requires some abstract thought, but that just makes the journey much more interesting. Wisely choosing your actions elevates your character's mood, and there is in fact a special ending if you manage to do perfect runs with all 5 characters. I leave it to you.
I'll be damned.
You dare
The engine's
challenge
starting up again.
God computer?
Oh, how to make a better video game movie.
Oh, look, how to save your franchise in 10 easy
Oh,
steps.
relax.
Thanks for sticking with us to the end of this week's episode. You are a true fan.
We couldn't have done this without you guys or our incredible crew.
Thanks to writers Max Stein and Tanner Mizelle, reviewer Logan Berg, producer and Xbox analyst Kyle Presley, and producer Caitlin Halley for making this episode a fun time.
Don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at PixelPeak App TV. You can also catch us on App TV and YouTube Saturdays at 2 p.m.
Thanks so much for watching, and we hope you enjoyed your stay here on Pixel Peak.